Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is a normal Wednesday sensitive information sharing environment working group call. What we wanted to do was to provide an update on some of the development from a technology side that we talked about in March in Philadelphia. And we wanted to show live some of the technology we'll be using this year. Over the past 18 months, the SISE working group has been developing a legal contract working with states that would serve as the initial confidentiality agreement that was completed in December of 2015 after about a year's work. That started the legal part of this framework. Since that time, we've been also working on the structure for the policy and process of when you create this trust environment. How do you onboard people? How do you use this to confine data to specific people? Private sector wanted to know not just who's looking at my data, but have they been validated and vetted by the consortium or the SISE work group? What levels of vetting are we doing? And how do we confine information for a specific use as we start sharing sensitive information, first in the electric sector, but then food and fuel, and there's been several other sectors now that are interested in this as well, finance, retail, and so forth. So today's going to be a quick demonstration of the work kind of culminating visually in the technology, and we wanted to provide a demonstration and gather input. So what is the SISE? The SISE stands for Sensitive Information Sharing Environment. It's a trust framework. It will provide the ability to integrate identity management and sensitive information sharing. It will create a visual, common operating picture across multiple states geographically, across multiple sectors, food, fuel, local government, state government, retail, whatever the data sources we have. It'll create a common operating picture for decision makers so they can see various things that relate to weather or accident or transit or traffic or rail or food or whatever. Fantastic technology that was started, that was invested by NOAA through their partner Storm Center, who's on the phone with us today. It's going to merge public and private information, public sourced and private sourced information. It'll allow us to merge sensitive and non-sensitive information where appropriate, but only to those users that qualify to kind of see that data. The best part, I think, it replaces nothing. The SISE is a framework any system can plug into. No requirements for upgrading or buying new systems or equipment. It's cloud-based. It's low cost, and it's been operational. We've been using parts of this since mid last year. It's a fantastically simple way to share information nationally. So we're very excited about it, and we want to thank our partners from Skyline and Storm Center to help us. So the big picture is very simple. On the left, you have data users and data providers. The data providers provide information as far as data feeds, like we have with Hughes Satellite and some other data feeds we're working on with the hazardous material and other things. And then you have ad hoc data that's generated by each incident. Those could be PDF files, pictures, spreadsheets, whatever. That information has to be brought together and layered so that decision makers can look at this and make a decision. So that was one of our requirements. On the data user side, we have to vet people. No one gets involved in this without being sponsored by someone, having a valid email, cell phone, and sign a confidentiality agreement. And it's very important that we've arrived at that based on legal recommendations, policy, and process. So the SISE combines all of that into a simple environment that can have data within the cloud or it can have data within your individual sites that you allow vetted traffic into. It's very flexible in how we do it. When it comes to identity management, NIST has a standard out there. It's being updated as we speak, but there's 4 levels basically. And where we fit in is we're stronger than username and password by far, but we don't require an identity card. This was important to the private sector because they already have big investments in cards. We didn't want to introduce a new one, and it needed to be virtual. So what we're going to show you today, we've been working on for 18 months now, is actually up and running. So we fit right at level 3. Identities are validated 4 ways. We could introduce some additional ways in the future if the data providers want that. There's a sponsor approval, a valid email check, a valid cell phone check every time someone logs in, and an agreement for the confidentiality agreement. So working with Skyline, we've put together a roadmap, but we can only mapped out based on what the private sector needed so that we could build the legal and the process into a technology. So the process, very simple, looks like this. It starts with identity vetting. We use an online application. A sponsor is given an email. That sponsor can approve or disapprove. We validate the email. The user accepts the confidentiality agreement. Then they go to the next step if they're approved. Once they're approved, they create their password, they enter their cell phone, they receive a text on their phone, they enter the code, and the account is created. From then on, they log in. They go to the site to log in, email, valid password, they get a text on their phone, access is granted. Once they come into the SISE, they'll join a pool of vetted users. That doesn't mean they get access to everything, that just means they're vetted. So if an individual company or agency or whatever has something to share, they can come to this pool of vetted identities and pick from that vetted pool of who they want to see their data. So once they log in, okay, the first thing they're going to see is this member portal, which we're going to demonstrate today live, which is new technology we're using for this. So this provides a one-to-many access. So these are customizable screens per user. There'll be a list of widgets they can pull onto their screen that can be weather-related, process-related, waivers, whatever, doesn't really matter. And from there they can launch into other apps, which will demonstrate. The one we want to show you today is the disaster dashboard we've been working on with Storm Center and NOAA and NASA. So I wanted to give you the big picture before we got into the technology. You'll see the technology is pretty elegant. It's very simple. The big thing we needed it to be was quick. We needed to be user customizable. We did not want to issue credentials, but we wanted to have a high grade level of security. LOA 3 is pretty good. And then we wanted to be able to have flexibility to scale to this nationally.